Manish Sabharwal, is labor participation. Look at China versus India. It's even worse when it comes to women, well up below average for other Asian countries, especially from East Asia. Should that be the focus? How do we get more people in the labor workforce? How do we create more employability, productive employability, not just jobs but productive jobs? Should that be seen as the big challenge? China at 67% versus India at 49% is a substantial gap.
Sure, but they're also much older. So I think absolutely the 3 E's of education, employment and employability are the single agenda for the next 25 years. But obviously, framing this problem in the last 5-10 years, the debate about unemployment has been really a waste of time, because we need higher productivity. Employed poverty is India's problem. So we need to raise the productivity of our states. You know, I live in Karnataka, my parents live in UP, they have the same GDP, but Karnataka does it with 1/4 the number of people. If you think about cities, I mean, Bangalore versus other places, if you think about sectors, 40% of our labor force in agriculture. But I think, you know, land labor capital has never been India's problem. It is how they combine. You know, you could give every Indian household half an acre, they would fit into Haryana and Rajasthan. Capital, we have 50% of India's foreign direct investment since 1947 has come in the last 5 years. So I would say women's labor force participation, we have hit bottom, it is turning. There's massive foreign investment. So if you think about sort of broad indicators of education, employment and employability, we're not where we should be, but there's been massive improvement. So I would say that there's a bunch of luck that India also has, right? The China luck, the factories that refugees who are running away from China, the digitization luck that was accelerated by COVID. And of course, the manufacturing luck, which, I mean, we only have 11% of our labor force in manufacturing, which is the same as the US, so the only side is up. So I would say yes, the productivity of our states, cities, sectors and firms and individuals, which is skills, as Poonam said, if we focus on that, there's no question that we can become the workshop to the world and the service economy to the world.
Santosh Mehrotra, are you as positive that we could actually use this large population base, this young population, particularly in contrast? I'll put up some numbers which will contrast India's youth population versus that of China. Could we use that, as some suggest, as this great dividend? Or do you believe it's a disaster waiting to happen?
It's a disaster waiting to happen because we have not invested in either the health or the education of our people. Although we have managed to universalize secondary education pretty much, but are we being able to generate the jobs? Well, the economy is not growing fast enough. We might have become, after COVID, the fastest growing large economy in the world, but we've been the second fastest growing large economy in the world for the last 15 years. Fact of the matter is, we have only 15 to 17 years more left in our demographic dividend, after which we will become an aging society. It is a disaster waiting to happen because A, we haven't invested in health and education. This government, despite making a commitment to increasing health expenditure to GDP, it's stuck at 1.3% of GDP. The National Health Policy of 2017 said that by 24-25, we will get to 2.5% of GDP. Have we made any effort in that direction? None at all, despite COVID having intervened. Secondly, we are still spending 2.9% of GDP on education. When we are way behind China, in terms of educational levels or skill levels, as a result of which work and factories which are exiting China are going to Vietnam, Bangladesh and Cambodia. They're not coming to India. I mean, just because we get one Windstorm and one Apple coming here, we start patting ourselves in the back. So the fact of the matter is, we are going to be an aging society like China became about 8-10 years ago. And by the way, it's a complete mistake for people in India to believe that we should have a national law about how many children to have. China did not reduce its birth rate on account of the one-child policy of 1983. They had managed to reduce their birth rate long before that because they invested in the health and education of their people.